Hey everyone, we are going to be talking about color harmony today. And this topic came up because of this perfect palette image that I posted on my feed. So I'm doing a new series of palette perfect.ai images. And this is one that I think I reposted to my stories, but here it is. You can see it. So it's an unusual palette. Let's go back to here. So this is what they look like on my feed, paletteperfect.ai. This is number 29. And let's get into the palette. So when I showed it to my youngest, Nick, he said, that's absolutely horrible. He thought it was, it's like those don't go together. It's like, but they do. I think it's a creative color palette. It's bold and it's strong, but it's balanced and it works in my opinion. So let's talk about why it works and why it's a little off, because, it is a little off, but we can explain that. Color harmony is a difficult conversation because you can't connect the dots from different color tools, different color wheels, like the red, yellow, blue color wheel, which is for color mixing. Then you have the red, green, and blue color wheel, which is for mixing colors of light. And then there's the CMY, not K, just cyan, magenta, and yellow color wheel that's also used for paint and ink. And I can show you that color wheel while we're talking about it. But these are different color tools for different purposes. And so that's really the first thing you have to ask is, well, what are you doing? What color wheel do you need for the job that you're doing? And my color wheel, the Color Strategist Color Wheel, is the only color wheel, the only one that was designed for choosing paint colors and material colors, interior and exterior. It was designed specifically for that purpose. So if we look at the CMY color wheel, you'll see that it has yellow directly across from blue. So that's a complementary color scheme. On other color wheels, well, orange is opposite of blue. So that's where the confusion starts to kick in terms of, well, what colors really are complementary? What colors are the real primary colors? Those are huge color conversations that I don't get into. So I'm going to show you my shortcut, abbreviated way for figuring out what colors go together, and unusual color palettes as well, not just, classic ones like blue, like blue and terracotta or blue, green and terracotta, those kinds of things. But blue and yellow, we're going to talk about that on my color wheel too, because that's a little off. It doesn't plot out nicely in perceptually uniform color space. And that's what my color wheel is. This is perceptually uniform. This is based on what colors look like to a real person, not too light like RGB, or not too ink and paints like RYB and CMYK. This is based on how we see color, how we experience color, and how color relationships register in our human brains, right? This is the human color wheel, and those other color wheels aren't, which is why color harmony mapped out on my color wheel is a little different, and we have to think creatively to talk about it. And it's important to be able to explain why there's when certain colors, certain palettes are deployed into a space, why it works. We have to be able to explain that so it can be repeated. And that's particularly important to people who are just at the very beginning of their journey figuring out what colors go together. And I work with a lot of those people because I have an online color training program called the 4 Pillars of Color. You don't have to know anything about any of it. We start from square one. There is no math. There is no science. I teach you how to use the same color system and the same science that's used to make and manage color in paint world, in fabric world, and window treatment world. There's only one color system. And I teach you the shortcut, the executive summary of how to optimize that entire system of color in your project, whether you're a DIYer or whether you are a color pro. And that's what these numbers are here on the side. These are the color data values. And this is kind of what started the conversation. After I posted this, again, I think it's in my stories, but if you go down farther in my feed, it's on my Instagram feed too. But one of my color strategists that I trained, Angie, asked me, well, why do these colors work? Why is this a palette perfect? And I can explain that to you. So first, let's talk about the image. It's paletteperfect.ai because I make these in AI. This one's 90% AI. None of them are ever perfect. I always have to take the images into Photoshop and clean them up and make them, fix all the crazy stuff. For example, the ballerina artwork in this picture, it was some weird picture of some ship and I didn't like it. So I had Midjourney make me a new piece of artwork based on this palette, and I got this ballerina. Well, when she came out, she only had one leg. So I had to Photoshop in her second leg. So that's where the images come from. And then I reverse engineered the color palette. And how AI works with color is fascinating. So, because I've been doing this now ever since, well, the day after Midjourney came out, I started making images in Midjourney and trying to understand how Midjourney and AI bots in general manage color. And it's, like I said, it's fascinating. I'm actually doing a workshop, AI color for interior designers and color consultants in about 4 weeks, I think it is. Follow me so you don't miss the invitation. But I'm going to tell you how it's working in AI and what you can do to work with it better and communicate color to AI more effectively so you get better results. And that's what I'm doing, right? That's how I'm generating all of these images. I know how to talk to AI. I know how to explain color to AI. So I get pretty close to exactly what I want right off the bat. And this is one of those instances. I was like, what if we did this, this, and this with color? I haven't seen this before. And I forget what it was. I think it was a piece of fabric that sparked the combination of peach and emerald green. So it kind of started with this piece of fabric that you see on the chair. It wasn't that exact fabric, but it was close. So that's how it started. And then I reverse engineer the colors. And I'll explain that to you in the workshop as well, how I figured out what these colors would be in real life, because you guys know color online is never accurate. But because I give you the color definition, the in real life color definition that defines what these colors are, you already have, the information about what this color is. So it kind of doesn't matter how this Sanibel peach is showing up on your device, because you can go get the chip and see what it is. And then we know it goes together because there's color harmony here. So let's get into explaining why odd color combinations aren't discordant, right? There's not clashing. These palettes go together and they work, but for no apparent reason. And if you want to repeat that, or if you want to try that in your growth path, trying to get better and more effective with color, you need to have some kind of a framework to follow to experiment with these color concepts. So that's why it's important for us to dissect this, understand it, and name it. So when I created this, it's a video. It starts with this page, and then it goes to here, and then it goes to here, and then it finishes here. So I make these videos. And so when I was making this color wheel for this one, I was sitting here looking at it. It's like, this is not a triad, right? This does not make a triangle. When you draw the lines, it's off. It's a little slanted. It's a diagonal. And there are diagonal lines in a triangle, but they end up being, a perfect triangle on regular color mixing color wheel, and all of the illustrations that you see that map out color harmony. The classic color harmonies are perfect triads. So it's a perfect triangle or it's a perfect rectangle, that kind of thing. And that's impossible to execute to. Like, no one is going to be sitting down to any color wheel, whether it's mine or another one, and plot their first color, Sanibel peach in this color, and then count 120 degrees and figure out where the green needs to come from. No one's doing that, right? Or no one, that's why, I think that's why color harmony gets kicked around a little bit and why color wheels kind of have a bad rap. It's because it's impossible to execute to that. And so what I did is we dropped that micro view of degrees to qualify what a color relationship is. And so I zoomed out, and at a macro level, we're only working with 10 hue families, the 10 hue families of the Munsell color system, which is a perceptually uniform color system. It's based on how we see color. And that's what my color wheel is predicated on. So yeah, I have degrees on my color wheel, but that's another story for another day. To make color harmony as streamlined and easy to understand as we can, we're only working with the 10 Munsell hue families. So look at the dots, right? The big dots are the center of all of the hue families on my color wheel. So that makes it simpler. But it's still not a triad because it's not perfectly evenly spaced. They're all, this is exactly where this gray blue color is. And I forget the name of this color, but we can go look. It's charcoal linen. So that's exactly where charcoal linen falls within its hue family. Same with Sanibel peach, same with this emerald green. But here's the concept that you need to understand. It's like you don't have to be so granular about it and get all wrapped up in the details of the degrees, trying to follow the old-fashioned frameworks that say triad relationships, all three colors are 120 degrees apart. Complementary relationships are 180 degrees apart. You don't have to do that. For a complementary example, we'll use blue and yellow. So here's blue on my color wheel, and here's yellow on my color wheel. Blue and yellow is a classic color combination. I mean, French provincial. I mean, it's amazing, blue and yellow together. And I've had this question from my students before too. It's like, well, blue and yellow don't make anything when you plot them out on your color wheel. Well, we can't explain it, right? So the word that I've come up with, the term that I've come up with to explain these color relationships that are just a little off is oblique opposition, because blue is just a little off from the true complement of yellow. Purple blue is directly across from yellow in perceptually uniform color space. But you don't have to follow that rigid quantification of separation of colors on a color wheel. It can be a little off. So we could highlight the blue hue family and highlight the yellow hue family, and it's an oblique opposition and it works, right? And again, the reason why we need to really, it's past time to talk about this, talk about color harmony and all of the warts that color harmony has, is AI is kind of pushing a lot of color literacy issues, and there are some areas that are going to have to change. If you want to function in the AI space and not absolutely lose your mind trying to communicate color with AI, color literacy is going to have to level up. And color harmony is on that agenda. And oblique opposition is something that AI will understand. And again, I'm going to do the workshop and I'll explain all that to you. But the point of the video today is to explain this kind of weird and very bold color palette for this room. And that's what I did. So we zoom out at a macro level, and we're only looking at the hue family zones. So if your color falls somewhere in this zone and the other two colors are over here and it looks balanced on the color wheel, when you map it out, it technically looks balanced. It's like, yeah, that looks reasonable. That looks logical. And then you go pull the chips, or you create a render and you confirm, it's like, yeah, that looks good. You're good to go. You don't have to get all wrapped up in the micro details of defining color harmony by quantifying precise distance in degrees between colors and color space. You just don't need to do that. So I have a definition of oblique opposition that I refined to share. So it's clear. Oblique opposition is a color harmony strategy based on measured hue relationships in a perceptually uniform color space. It's for those moments when a palette feels harmonious and colors look like they should work, but they don't follow traditional spacing rules like 120-degree triads or 180-degree complements. So it's a classic problem. It's like, well, how do you explain that? And then that's when people default to, well, there are no rules in color harmony. If it looks good to you, then it's right. That doesn't help people who don't understand how to work with color. That's not a tangible framework for people who are just starting out in their color journey, trying to decorate their home and make all the right choices. That doesn't help those people. I actually saw a comment on a forum this week, and it was from a lady, and apparently she's been in the design world for 25 years. And the conversation was about LRV. And she's like, I would never look at an LRV number. In 25 years, light reflectance value has never crossed my lips. And it's like, you could have scrolled by the conversation if it wasn't for you, number one. Number two, that's not helpful for anybody, because it's wonderful that inside her microcosm of color, where she's spinning, all of the things are working for her. All of the color gears are well aligned for her, and she's able to pick color with little to no effort. But that's not everybody, right? So her comment brought no value to the conversation. I didn't say that, but it didn't. Who's that helping? And actually, even if you are an experienced designer, you can improve your color design workflow, especially if you have a team. Because if you're wearing all the hats when it comes to color, and the color decisions are based on one person's design aesthetic and color sense, there's opportunity there to streamline your workflow. And there's an opportunity to establish a standard operating procedure for color by educating everybody on your team in these color data values in the color science. And that's what I teach you in the 4 pillars of color. There's no math. There's no science. I'm not a math person, which is another reason why zooming out and using just the 10 hue families and focusing on hue family zones. If I fall somewhere in here, I'm good. And of course, if you take my course, I give you a PDF of 88 of these diagrams of different color relationships that I've mapped out for you. So I draw you pictures of different ways to combine different colors, as long as you're in that hue family zone, because I don't do math either. So that's not what we're doing in the 4 pillars of the 4 pillars of color. I'm giving you an executive summary of the science so you can immediately implement it. After lesson 1, you can hit the ground running. So you can use it to develop a color design workflow if you don't have one, or streamline one if you do, and refine and create a standard operating procedure for color if you have a team. So that's the advantage of understanding the color data values that you see in these paletteperfect.ai videos that I'm posting on my Instagram feed. It's lightness, chroma, hue angle, Munsell hue, value, chroma, and I also have LRV on there, even though LRV is the least useful color data number in the world. Now I take that back. RGB values are the worst. RGB values are like the bane of my existence, because RGB values do not tell you how much red, green, and blue a color has in it. And every freaking paint brand publishes RGB values for their paint colors. It's like that's not what that is. That's not what it's telling you. I have a little post on, I think it's LinkedIn, where it's the little meme. It says RGB values are the Temu of color data. And it's true. But you can find these data values for every paint color from every major paint brand at thelandofcolor.com in the paint color DNA table. You can go get these values just like me. That's another color tool. So between the paint color DNA table and my Color Strategist Color Wheel, you can truly finally get your color workflow organized and together. And when you go on consultations or when you have projects to do, you have some structure to that. So let's see, what else do I want to tell you? Yeah, why it's a little bit off. Right? It's not a direct line. It doesn't make that perfect triangle when we're looking at this particular example. And there's no way to make a perfect triad using 10 hue families. So I was kind of lazy by putting the triad label here. I admit it. It's like, it's just going to be easier because I didn't think anybody would notice. But I'm a really, really good teacher. And one of my students did. She's like, hey, what is going on? And then after I brought it up once, somebody noticed that I took a piece of 2 hue families right here. So this isn't one single hue family. I took half of the red-yellow hue family and half of the yellow-red hue family to make a hue zone that's the same size as the other 2, right? This is purple-blue, true purple-blue hue family, and this is the actual green hue family as well. So I needed it to be balanced. So that's why I did that. So I took the liberty of taking half of red and half of yellow red, and I put them together to make a new hue family zone. And sometimes to get the balance that I'm talking about, you have to cross those hue family boundaries. And like I said, I give you 88 of these graphics in a PDF and the 4 pillars of color, so you don't have to think about it. I broke all of the rules for you and drew pictures of it while I was doing it. So, and the color harmony purists are probably going to come for me, but you really can. I don't mind. And to take it a step further for the color harmony purists, when you put all of this into a spreadsheet, it's wild. When you actually apply the math to this, it's insane. There's actually a formula for this oblique opposition using 3 colors that you can make repeatable. It's crazy. If you're interested, let me know. Because, once I figured it out visually, I knew better. I know the sandbox where I play in terms of color science. I was also a graphic designer for 14 years, so I know print world, and I know how people feel about color there as well. So before, I start talking about a brand new kind of color harmony that I made up a name for, I better be able to back it up with some data and a logical and reasonable explanation, and I can. So it's not just, yeah, that looks pretty good here. We can actually explain it in more detail if you want, but I don't do that in the 4 pillars of color because you really don't need that. You don't need to know how the sausage was made for color harmony. You just need to know that this is a guideline and this can work, and take another look at it. And just because you don't see an example of a perfectly, aligned, straight lined color harmony diagram somewhere out there in AI or on the internet, doesn't mean you should drop the idea. You should pursue it. And really this whole oblique opposition concept, and the reason why I'm kind of excited about it, is because it is freedom within structure. You're not guessing, but at the same time, you're not boxed in by rigid geometry or traditionally rigid geometry. Because like I said, there is a little bit of math behind this that makes it repeatable. And that's really important when you're using the color data values. You just can't go using them willy-nilly. That's for sure. But we can explain it. And it's also important to validate that it's going to work, right? And that's the other thing. When you're just unsure about a color combination, or you have two what seems to be disparate elements in a space, it's like, how are we? Then they have to stay, right? It's a countertop and it's a floor. They don't work. They are two different colors. Well, you have to bridge the two colors. Well, how do you do that? Well, you do that with oblique opposition color harmonies, and the 88 color harmonies that I give you in that PDF. It can save you a ton of time by illustrating some ideas about what to do for that third color to make the countertop, backsplash, and floor that don't seem to work together, about how to make it work without buying 5 million samples and unpacking a trillion color chips. I don't know if anyone who works on site with clients and you bring chips with you, like architectural kits. The worst part of that whole process, it's fun pulling all those chips out to see what's going on, to see how it's working and to take a look. But someone's got to put all those chips away. That's actually something Nick and Jake help me with. Jake is my oldest. I have 2 boys. So I will come home and it's like, oh my God, Mom, how many chips did you pull? It's like, well, we just got on a little tear looking for the right off-white. So I pulled a lot this time, but they put them all away for me and they order new ones if I use them. So it's a process. So before you go pulling chips, and I use the numbers before I go pulling chips, right? So at least I'm pulling chips with a reason. And for example, in this room, if we had a book of window treatments and they had 15 different whites, well, how do you know which white is the right one for this room? Well, I would go to the color data values and see where Sanibel Peach fell in color space, and it's yellow red, and I would just go to the same hue family zone for that off-white, head over to the paint color DNA table, use the filters at the top, and find the perfect white in a paint color, and then use that as a guideline to find the right white for the blind. And you'd have it done in about 10 minutes, and it would be the correct decision out of the ones you had to choose from. Same with the desk, same with the rug. It gives you guidance. It doesn't just explain a super creative color palette that works, but no one can put their finger on why all those colors go together. It's not just that. It's not just that framework, but it also gives you guidance for developing out the palette further. Or what are you going to do in the adjacent hallway? It can tell you where to go, where to look for the next color beyond this palette. So let's see. Is there anything else I want to tell you? It's macro over micro. We're not looking at the teeny tiny degrees like most color harmony charts cite to explain how colors go together. Actually, though, talking about math and color, those degree separations, the super rigid degree separations, is really for the RGB color space. So you can compute color harmonies digitally. So if you ever see color harmonies or suggested colors from paint brands, they're doing it mathematically, right? There isn't a person pulling all those chips. Well, they probably have people to put the chips away. They could if they wanted to, but no one's pulling all of those chips, figuring out the suggested colors to go with the color that you looked up. It's all math on the back end, which is why some of those suggested color harmonies on the paint brands' websites they just don't feel right, because it's not based on numbers that define and describe what colors look like to human beings. It's based on RGB numbers that are instructions for a device, and they're not perceptually uniform. So that's why the suggested palettes from the paint brands can just feel a little, they're not even off. They just feel like weird. It's the weird, clumsy, clunky combination. And it's like, there's got to be a better answer, and there absolutely is. And we talk about that too in the 4 pillars of color. So yeah, if you're interested, you can go to campchroma.com. That's where you can find all the information about the 4 pillars of color course, the paint color DNA table with all the numbers that you saw in my peach ceilinged room is on thelandofcolor.com. I have 2 websites. I keep my course separate from everything else, just because, if something tragic were to happen, at least I got half of my people up and running. Only half of the people would be mad at me if something goes down. And Color Wheel, yeah, I sell these on my website. I actually sell a 6-inch. It looks like this. If you take my course, you get one of these in your kit. I send you a course kit with all kinds of hands-on exercises and worksheets. And yeah, it is the real deal. When you finish my course, you are a certified color strategist, and you can navigate color spaces and color wheels and all that stuff super, super efficiently. And it doesn't have anything to do with the paint color formulas, by the way. Paint color formulas, those are just recipes and ingredients about what it takes to make the color. Color formulas don't define or describe color appearance. So there is a definite difference in color data values. Color data values are not all created equal. RGB, LRB, the paint color formula, the list of ingredients, none of those are it. I give you the most potent and efficient color data values that you need to know in detail in my course. So yeah, that explains this color palette that my youngest son, Nick, thinks is absolutely horrible. Let me know what you think, if you like it or not. And I also have the AI, what did I call it? AI color for interior designers and color consultants. If you're interested in that workshop, let me know. I'll put you on the list, and I'll send you all the info when we know where and when that's going to be. So if you have any other questions, just let me know, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.